For the longest time, Dean was not just a part of life. It was life. Morning began with it. Nights ended with it. At first it felt harmless, even comforting. Like a quiet shadow always following, never asking too much. But little by little, that shadow grew darker. The comfort turned into chains. What once felt like a friend became something else entirely. Something heavy, something suffocating. At first the signs were small. A moment of silence that felt too long. A conversation that turned sharp when it should have been soft. Or maybe it was the way energy drained. The way laughter slowly disappeared, replaced by quiet arguments and restless nights. People didn't notice right away. That's the tricky thing about something that takes over your life. It doesn't arrive as a storm. It sneaks in as a drizzle, one drop at a time, until you look around and realize you are drowning. There were days filled with questions. Days filled with doubt. Was it worth it? Was Dwayne worth the sacrifices, the broken pieces, the endless waiting? Sometimes the answer felt like yes. Sometimes the answer felt like no. But deep down, the truth was always there, waiting to be faced. And the truth was simple. Life had started to revolve around something that only pulled down instead of lifting up. And yet, it's never easy to let go. That's the cruel part. Even when something hurts, it can still feel safe. Because at least it's familiar, at least it's known. And so the story went on. Day after day, carrying something that looked like love but felt like a wound. It always starts quietly. One broken promise here, one careless word there. But with Diane, it was never just a single cut. It was 1,000 small wounds, hidden under the skin, invisible to the outside world but bleeding inside every day. There were moments when silence was louder than screams, rooms filled with heavy air, where even breathing felt like walking on glass. The weight of Dai wasn't just on the shoulders. It pressed on the chest, on the heart, until every beat felt like it was dragging chains. And yet the cruelest part wasn't the pain. It was the hope. That fragile, dangerous hope that maybe tomorrow would be better, that maybe this time Damas would change, maybe this time the storm would finally pass. So the waiting continued. The forgiving continued. The believing continued. But storms don't change just because you want them to. They crash. They destroy, and Dinar was no different. Every day it took more time, trust, peace, until life felt like a shadow of what it once was. The truth is, Dewey's didn't just hurt. It stole. It stole laughter that once came so easily. It stole sleep, leaving behind nights filled with restless thoughts and mornings heavy with regret. It stole the simple joys of life, the kind you don't notice until they're gone, like the warmth of a sunny morning or the sound of quiet comfort in a friend's voice. And still, there was fear. Fear of letting go, fear of stepping into emptiness. Because what if letting go meant losing everything? What if goodbye meant regret? That fear built a cage, and for too long life was lived behind its bars. But cages are not forever. Even the strongest ones crack when the heart begins to fight back. And somewhere inside, the first crack had already formed. It didn't happen in a grand moment. There was no thunder, no earthquake, no sudden explosion. The turning point came quietly, like the first crack of dawn breaking through a long, endless night. One small thought whispered in the mind, "What if I deserve more than this?" That whisper was dangerous because once you hear it, you cannot unhear it. It lingers, echoing in the silence. It grows stronger each time Deem brings pain. Each time the same cycle repeats, until one day the whisper becomes louder than the fear. The heart began to see what the eyes had ignored. The chains didn't look like safety anymore. They looked like chains. The shadow didn't look like comfort anymore. It looked like darkness. And suddenly the idea of goodbye didn't feel like loss. It felt like freedom waiting on the other side of a locked door. That door had always been there, hidden in plain sight. But opening it required one thing, courage. The courage to step into the unknown. The courage to risk emptiness for the chance of peace. And in that moment, courage came not as a roar, but as a quiet decision. A decision that enough was enough. That life could not continue being swallowed by the weight of D. The air felt different, lighter, as if even the walls had been waiting for this choice. As if the world itself leaned closer and whispered back, "Yes, let go. You're ready." The storm inside began to calm. The cage began to crumble. And for the first time in so long, there was a glimpse of something powerful. Hope. Real hope. Not the fragile hope that Disang would change, but the strong hope that life could change without Dioank. And with that, the first step was taken, not away in anger but forward in strength. Goodbye was no longer a word. It was a beginning. The moment finally arrived. No more waiting, no more excuses, no more promises that always broke like glass under the weight of reality. Torsi stood there, not as a friend, not as a habit, not as a comfort, but as a shadow that had overstayed its welcome. There was no shouting, no chaos, just silence, the kind of silence that comes before a storm ends, the kind of silence that feels holy, as if the world pauses to witness a choice that will change everything. And then, the word was spoken, not softly, not in fear, but clear, steady, unshaken. Goodbye. That single word carried years of pain. It carried nights of tears, days of doubt, and endless cycles of hope and heartbreak. It carried chains breaking, locks opening, wings unfolding, visuals for this moment, a hand releasing a rope that burns away into ash, a door closing while sunlight spills through a new one, a page of a book turning, the ink of the old chapter fading into white. But goodbye was not the end. It was the beginning of breathing again, the beginning of peace, the beginning of rediscovering life without the weight of deer. And the strange thing? The world didn't collapse without deer. Instead, it bloomed. The silence turned into calm. The emptiness turned into space. And in that space, new laughter could grow. New dreams could rise and new light could enter. Goodbye is always painted as an ending. But in truth, it's a doorway. You step through it carrying scars but also carrying strength. You step through it knowing you survived something that once felt unbreakable. And that knowledge stays with you forever. So this was not just a goodbye to D. It was a goodbye to pain, a goodbye to chains, a goodbye to shadows, and in its place, hello to freedom. Hello to peace. Hello to life. Goodbye never feels easy. It cuts, it stings, it leaves a mark. But scars are proof that healing has begun. And this goodbye, this farewell to Dikang, was not just an ending, it was a mirror held up to life itself. Because here's the truth. We all carry a Dikang. Maybe it's not a person. Maybe it's a habit. Maybe it's doubt, fear, or the heavy weight of a past we never asked for. It looks different for each of us, but it feels the same. A slow erosion of joy. A thief that steals time and peace, and we learn to live with it. We convince ourselves it's normal. We say, this is just how things are. Until one day we realize normal does not have to mean painful. That realization is where everything changes. Saying goodbye is not about hate. It's not about anger. It's about finally choosing yourself. Choosing your own breath over suffocation. Choosing your own freedom over familiar chains. It's about reclaiming the life that was always yours, but had been buried under the weight of something that didn't deserve it. The lesson is simple, but it burns deep. Holding on can destroy while letting go can save. Goodbye is not weakness, it is the bravest step a person can take. And so the farewell to Didas becomes more than one story. It becomes a reminder that you too can close the door on what holds you down. You too can whisper that single word, steady and strong. Goodbye. And when you do, you'll find that endings aren't endings at all. They are beginnings. They are open skies after storms, light after shadows, calm after years of chaos. So ask yourself, what is the deed in your life? And when will you finally let it go? The door has closed. The chapter has ended. The last word has been spoken, goodbye. But listen closely, do you hear it? In the distance, beneath the silence, there is something new. Not the echo of pain, not the voice of chains, but the steady rhythm of freedom like a heartbeat rediscovered. Goodbye is not a full stop, it is a comma, a pause before the sentence of life continues. And now life begins to write again, not with the ink of Diao Wang, but with colors untouched, with pages unspoiled. Some will say goodbye is cruel, but cruelty is in staying too long where you no longer belong. Goodbye is mercy. Goodbye is rebirth. Goodbye is the soul remembering what it was always meant to be. Visuals here, an empty chair fading into the background, replaced by a sunrise spilling across an endless horizon. A hand once clenched in struggle now open, releasing a bird into the sky. A cracked mirror falling away, revealing a clear face, a new self unbroken. And so we leave these behind, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with finality. With peace. The story has ended and another has begun. But one question remains, what about you? What shadows are you still carrying? What storms are you still calling home? What cages do you still mistake for comfort? The story of goodbye is not just mine. It is yours too. And when the moment comes when your heart whispers that it's time, you will know. And when you finally step forward, when you finally let go, the world will open like a sky after rain. So, to Deet, this is the last word. This is the last chapter. This is the final goodbye. And to you, this is the beginning, and here we are, at the very end. The story of Done is no longer just a story, it is a mirror. You've walked through the silence, through the storm, through the goodbye. But now the question is not about Dewing anymore. It's about you. Every one of us holds on to something too long. A memory that burns, a voice that shames, a habit that cages us. We pretend it's not there. We pretend it doesn't hurt. But deep down we know. We always know. The truth is, life is too short to bow before shadows, too precious to waste on chains, too beautiful to be spent waiting for something or someone that only takes and never gives. So this final moment is not just mine. It is yours. A challenge. A whisper in your ear. A question you cannot ignore. What is your DO? Think about it. The thing that weighs you down. The thing that steals your joy. The thing that has overstayed its welcome. You already know its name. You've always known. Now ask yourself, when will you let it go? When will you finally say the word that will break the chain, close the door, and set you free? Goodbye. Visuals here. The word goodbye written in the air, fading into light. A lone figure walking forward into a sunrise, leaving shadows behind. Because this is not just an ending. This is a call, a reminder, a spark. The power of goodbye is already inside you. You only need to speak it. So when the time comes, don't whisper. Don't hesitate. Say it with courage. Say it with strength. Say it for yourself. Goodbye, D. And hello to a life that finally belongs to you.